Hey, happy homecoming week. We're talking Ball State football tonight alongside Tony Sandlaven and Ben Shuren. I'm Amanda Smith. Ben, first time on the show.
Oh yeah, pumped to be on the show talking some Ball State football. Can't wait to get started.
We're excited to have you here. And Tony, it's been a while.
Yeah, had a week off, had a time to kind of
cleared your head a little bit.
I suppose. I was kind of reminded last week of my incorrect predictions, if you will. But
hey,
you know what? It's all good.
It's a new night.
New night, slate's clean.
Clean slate, exactly.
New games, new fun.
I know. All right, let's get right into it. Now, last Saturday, Ball State hit the road, taking on 17th ranked Northwestern. And there was a lot of talk before the game about how they would match up against the Wildcats' defensive line. Now, late in the first half, Ball State's going to be down, but Riley Neal completes the pass to Jordan Williams for a Cardinal touchdown. They go up 10-7 right before halftime. Williams pretty pumped about that play right there. That'll be his first of two. Now, third quarter, Northwestern picks up the pace. Clayton Thorson finds his receiver in the end zone. They go up 21-10, and they'll go on to kick a field goal, puts them up 14. Ball State's not going to give them the game, though. Neal steps back, finds Williams in the end zone. That'll be his second touchdown of the night, and they cut the deficit to 8. Now, looking into the fourth quarter, last play of the game, Ball State trying to make something happen offensively, but the clock is going to run out, and that is going to be game. Northwestern is going to go on to defeat Ball State 24-19. Now, head coach Pete Lembo addressed the loss earlier this week in a press conference. Here's what he had to say.
The effort and the energy by our guys was terrific. Thought we played very, very physical against the Wildcats on both sides of the ball and on special teams. And we achieved several objectives that we had going in. One was to win the turnover battle, and that's critical in every game, but we knew it would be especially important in this one.
All right, now after the game, Pete Lembo said that they left about 14 points on the field. Tony, do you agree that they kind of let that game get away?
I do agree. There were some mistakes made and key points in that game that allowed Northwestern to come away with the victory in the sense that there were 2 field goals missed, so that's 6 points off the board. There was a PAT block, so that combines to 7, not to mention a fumble at the goal line, which could arguably have turned into a touchdown. So you're talking, like Pete Lembo said, 13, 14 points off the board. But the good thing about this game is that Ball State played very, very well against a very tough opponent. It's a much different feel than what they had coming away from the Texas A&M game, in the sense that Pete Lembo said it. They won the turnover battle. They were physical on both sides of the ball. It was just key mistakes in key moments of the game that allowed Northwestern to come away with this victory. A lot of mistakes that were made in this game, very fixable.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Tony. There's no moral victories in winning a football game, but Lembo's got to feel good about this one. They go into Northwestern. They play a ranked Big Ten team, very tough in their on the road, and the quarterback position has been decided. Riley Neal has asserted himself at quarterback, and they played a decent game on offense against a defense that was ranked in the top 5 nationally coming into the game. So going into the Lembo has to feel good about this going into the heart of the Mid-American Conference schedule for Ball State.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Riley Neal for a second. That was his first start. What did you guys feel? I didn't see a lot of nerves in him, which I thought that was a pretty good thing for Ball State's offense.
Well, I was very impressed with Riley Neal, and again, it was almost as if he heard me say Jack Milos was a better option. Continues to prove me wrong, but Riley Neal, absolutely, you said it, Ben, has asserted himself as the starter through 2 touchdown passes, no interceptions, also had 16 carries for 74 yards. He's a dual-threat quarterback, a very physical runner. He's an athlete for his size, and certainly has proven that he is the guy to stay behind center for this Ball State football team. But also somebody else I want to talk about is Jordan Williams. I talked about Riley Neal threw for 178 yards. 133 of those yards and both of those touchdowns went to Jordan Williams. Neal has found his guy, his best friend, his security blanket, if you will.
And I feel like that's what you were worried about, is how he was going to
play
with the wide receivers.
It's definitely panned out. Jordan Williams has played exceptionally well since Riley Neal took over.
Yeah.
And, also there was some promise in Corey Lacanaria. He only had 2 receptions for 25 yards, but, he showed some promise throughout the game, and that's what you want to see out of a sophomore wide receiver, because Riley Neal is going to lose Jordan Williams after this year, and you want to develop the relationship with Lacanaria, so next year when Lacanaria is going to become the 1 or 2, he has a reliable target in Corey, as he does with Jordan Williams.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the defense because they held them in the first half to just 7 points. So second half, where did it go wrong?
Like you said in the highlight reel, they picked it up just right out of the gate. Pat Fitzgerald simplified the game for Clayton Thorson, a freshman quarterback, redshirt. They, right out of the gate in the second half, scored 2 80-yard touchdown drives, and that really was the turning point because then Ball State was more conscious of the pass in Clayton Thorson, how he could be dangerous in the passing game, and then that opened the door up for Justin Jackson as he torched the Cardinals on the ground, going 184 yards on 33 carries, and that's really when Northwestern was able to bust the game open and really take control of it and assert their dominance.
Well, Ball State's defense had a different strategy, it seemed like, in this game than most dominant defenses you would see, in the sense that it was more of a bend but don't break mentality. A lot of yards were surrendered. You mentioned 184 by Justin Jackson. 290 total rushing yards were allowed by Ball State. That's something that does need to be fixed. That being said, though, only 24 points were given up by the Ball State defense, which means things are kind of not necessarily a lot better, but they're improving because 2 games to start out the season, Ball State surrendered somewhere around a combined 92 points in 2 games. So 24 in this game, certainly something to be proud of. Again, improvements. This is a team that's relatively young, especially on the defensive side in the secondary. A lot of things can improve. Stopping Northwestern, holding them to only 24 points, definitely a jumping off point.
Yeah, just touching on what you said, it's a miracle that they held them to 24 points on 546 total yards. It definitely was pretty impressive to see them hold them to 24 points and stay in the game against a ranked team.
Yeah, they did. They stayed in the game against what people were concerned about, that defensive line. So this weekend now, in the homecoming game, they're going to be playing Toledo. Now they've played a game, an SEC team, a Big Ten team. They played one MAC team, Eastern Michigan, but Toledo is a little bit better, I guess you could say, than Eastern. What are your predictions for that game?
Yeah, well, Toledo is definitely a different kind of animal. They are a very, very talented team. Again, a very strong defensive squad. Arguably the best team in the MAC conference right now. There's Bowling Green, there's Northern Illinois, there's Toledo. All 3 of those teams are up there in regards of who you think the best is in this conference. But Toledo has a lot to say on their record. They beat number 18 ranked Arkansas to open up the season. But here's the thing about Ball State. If they want to win this game, they're going to have to make adjustments in the running game. If they can stop the run, force a lot of 3rd and long situations, the Cardinals, I think, have a chance in this game.
Yeah, I think Toledo looks a lot more scarier than they actually are. Top 10 running back in the country, Kareem Hunt, he looks like he is going to be out for the game. So that's a big advantage for the Cardinals. Like Tony said, if they can really just minimize the run game for Toledo, Ball State will have a chance. And Ball State's offense really is underrated too. They're within the top half of the FBS, while Toledo really, outside of the running game, Philip Ely has just struggled all year, even being a transfer from Alabama. Just really hasn't gotten it going, has a 48% completion, 2 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. So really, it goes back to what Tony said. Limit the rush. If the defensive line can just hold up Toledo's rushing game, I think it definitely can be a competitive game. Plus, it's homecoming, a little bit extra motivation to get the W this weekend.
And not to mention, kind of coming full circle here, we talked about the mistakes that were made in the Northwestern game. If those can be fixed, make field goals, don't turn the ball over in the red zone, and just simply keep doing your job and execute properly, Ball State certainly has a chance to win this game. It's a MAC opponent. It's a very familiar opponent. And both of these teams, it's always a great football atmosphere when they play each other. Homecoming this year certainly will be a fun game to watch.
Will you be at the game?
Absolutely.
Will you be at the game?
Absolutely.
All right, maybe we can all sit together. Okay, that is all we have time for tonight, guys. For Tony Sandlaven, Ben Shuren, and everyone else involved, I'm Amanda Smith. We'll see you right here next week.